Not all contract holdouts are the same, and the media tends to always take the player's side in this. I get that with Terry McLaurin of Washington. I'm on his side. I'm not on Micah Parsons. First of all, I was on team trade Micah Parsons a year ago. The Cowboys are a mile from the Philadelphia Eagles roster composition. They need 4 good players. I would have gotten a couple of second-round picks, maybe a first and a fourth, whatever. I like Micah. He's a good player. But I'm not making him the highest paid defensive end. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not Aiden Hutchinson. He's not Max Crosby. He's not TJ Watt. He's not Nick Bosa. I like him a lot.
If the Cowboys were to let Micah walk, what would that mean for them moving forward?
What that means to me is that you aren't trying to compete for a championship right now.
What's happening with Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys is not just about money. It's about timing, about leadership, about decades of mismanagement that always seem to resurface at the worst possible moment.
It's certainly not enough to trade him. And the idea that just because the front office made the mistake of not paying him early, which I think we all agree is a mistake, means now they should make a mistake even worse by moving on from him, accumulating draft picks, in hopes that they might get a player like Micah Parsons. That's nonsense. They should keep him. They should pay him. And then you can figure it out with the rest. It's not an untenable cap situation to pay him and restructure Dak Prescott. I've looked at it. It is entirely possible for this team to do this.
Yeah, they can pay him, but then what? But then how does your team get markedly better from what it was last year? They got 25 free agents, y'all.
Time
They
out.
got Turpin.
This ain't unsportsmanlike.
Trading him?
This ain't hold on, y'all. Hold on. This ain't unsportsmanlike.
The Parsons standoff has already spilled from backroom negotiations onto the practice field, and now the Cowboys' 2 most important players are no longer united. They are standing nose to nose, calling each other out, and dragging the entire locker room into the storm.
And Micah does deserve a big contract. Slater got one. I'm not denying that. But I think left tackle is harder to find and much more valuable than edge rusher. Left tackle after quarterback, to me, is the number 2 position by a long shot in the league. Go look at the Niners and Kyle Shanahan when Trent Williams doesn't play. Go look at the Chargers when Rashawn Slater doesn't play. There are no great backup left tackles. There's all sorts of guys that can rush the passer in the NFL. The college gives you 6 a year, guys that can play, and you'll get them in mid-rounds. There are no great left tackles in the 5th round historically. The top 30 left tackles of all time, 28, I think, are first-round picks.
The Cowboys had a window to avoid all of this. When Nick Bosa signed his historic extension at $34 million per year, Dallas could have acted decisively, gotten Parsons under contract, and bought themselves savings that would carry for years.
This is First Take. We have this segment because you brought up culture. You brought up the podcast. You brought up the locker room. Now, we can go back and forth in terms of the numbers. We playing a numbers game. All right, he's one player. You're already paying CeeDee Lamb and Dak. You add Micah Parsons to that. It's problematic. I got that part. You could go either way with what you said or Mina saying you can restructure his deal or what have you. I'm not debating that. The reason this is a segment, First Take, the reason this is a segment is because you brought up culture. You brought up the podcast. You brought up the locker room and the comment about Mike McCarthy. That is the reason we are talking about this subject. If it was just a matter of numbers, we wouldn't have been addressing this. We did this days ago. We did this because you went on the air and you brought up culture and blamed him, which to me is crazy. That's just crazy. You gonna blame Micah Parsons for culture in Dallas?
Well, Stephen A., if I'm gonna pay a guy $40 million a year, he's going to have to be a part of the culture being a good thing, not something that my organization and the rest of my locker room has to overcome.
So I compare dude 40, I compare dude 60 that can't get it done, but I'm having a problem playing a brother 30 to 40 who does.
They didn't. They hesitated, convinced themselves they had time.
And so Micah has, and by the way, right now, Micah's contract going into this year without a new contract would make him the 5th highest edge rusher cap hit. That's a totally appropriate contract. totally appropriate. That's not Terry McLaurin.
Makes no sense, guys. But you know.
Ezekiel Elliott's contract became an albatross because the team waited too long, allowed him to hold out, and then caved under pressure. Dak Prescott's deal ballooned after 2 years of hesitation. Amari Cooper was traded away for pennies after the front office botched negotiations.
I think what Dan says is important because Jerry Jones has taken this personally. He's treated their conversation in the spring as if it was a conversation amongst friends, right? There is no friendship in ownership and labor. That's not the way it worked. The imbalance of power doesn't allow that. So when Jerry Jones says, okay, we're going to pay you this much per year, it's going to be this many years. And when Micah Parsons says, yes, that sounds good, Jerry, now call David Mulugeta and let's get the fine print worked out. You would expect that David Mulugeta has gotten black and white or gotten an email or gotten a paper that says, here's the outline of what we want to do within a contract. That's never happened. That next step that says, okay, I have a representation, the same way Jerry would have representation if he was going into litigation. I have representation that you're supposed to work this out with.
Des Bryant's extension dragged out so long that it fractured relationships with the front office. Over and over again, Dallas stumbles on the same step: draft, develop, and retain. The drafting has been strong. The development has been excellent. But when it comes to retention, this franchise turns routine business into a public circus.
If the Dallas Cowboys decide that this is the time that they want to stand on business, then the Dallas Cowboys and their executives are derelict in their duties. Your job is to draft, develop, and retain the best players. Well, you got Micah Parsons as a slot in the draft where he was available to you and shouldn't have been. So you made the right decision. You drafted the players. And then you developed him. He started as an off-the-ball linebacker. He moved on the ball to become a rush in. And now he's one of the most prolific in the history of the game. And so now you get to take the next step and do the right thing, which is retain Micah Parsons and find a way to build around him. Now, here is where you messed up. You messed up because you had that opportunity last year. And if you do that last year, when Nick Bosa is being paid around $34 million a year, you don't have to get to this point and think to yourself, we're going to have to pay upwards of $42, upwards of $43 million a year. So you have backed yourself into this corner. A corner, by the way, that you backed yourself into with Ezekiel Elliott. A corner you backed yourself into with CeeDee Lamb. A corner you backed yourself into with Dak Prescott. So why now, today, with this player, do you take this stand that because the agent is involved or because you can't come up with the deal that you think the player should take, you are now not even having conversations about it?
Parsons has done everything asked of him. Drafted as an off-ball linebacker, he shifted to the edge and immediately became one of the most disruptive defenders in football. His pressure rates, his sack totals, his ability to flip drives, all of it places him among the elite. And yet, the Cowboys have made him wait.
This man's future. You're playing with this man's livelihood in terms of Micah Parsons. Yes, he's under contract, but the reality is that you know what this man deserves. You had an idea about it, and you're playing these games. And why am I so disgusted with Jerry Jones about this? Because of the things that I've heard. Molly, Mike T, Swagoo, you've heard this. Do y'all know he hasn't spoken to Micah Parsons' agent? You're talking about, you're treating like the discussions that you had months ago with Micah Parsons was a negotiation. It wasn't a negotiation. Now, you know this as a former executive in the National Football League. You don't sit up there and have a discussion with a player and think that's a contract negotiation. Was anything memorialized? Was anything firmly and definitively agreed upon by the parties that be? Normally, you're sending the player away because you want to talk to their representation. You're not thinking that a conversation with a player, who, by the way, is 25, 26 years of age, that this man is astute and he's an expert at negotiations. That's not Micah Parsons.
For months, the whispers have grown louder. Jerry Jones hasn't even engaged directly with Parsons' agent. Conversations with Parsons himself have been treated as negotiations, but nothing was put on paper. Nothing formal ever reached the representation that is supposed to handle the details. That is not how modern business is done in the NFL. That's how distrust builds. And so training camp, meant to be about chemistry and preparation, became the stage for an explosion. Parsons was there, but not truly participating. His helmet dangled from his hand, his stance was distant, his demeanor icy. Teammates noticed, coaches noticed, fans noticed. It wasn't subtle. The contract cloud hung over every drill. The flashpoint came during 7-on-7s. Dak Prescott dropped back, rifled a slant to CeeDee Lamb, and jogged back to the huddle. As he passed Parsons, he muttered under his breath, just loud enough to be heard. "Man, you can cash your checks later. Right now, we need you out here." That was all it took. Parsons froze, turned, eyes narrowing. "What did you just say?" Dak didn't back down. "You heard me. We're grinding for a Super Bowl. Nobody cares about Jerry's games or your agent right now. We need you." The field went silent, helmets half on, drills abandoned, everyone watching. Parsons stepped forward, his voice booming across the field. "You've already been paid. You've had your bag. I'm out here destroying my body every week, carrying this defense while Jerry clowns around. This isn't just business, it's respect." Dak's voice rose to match him. "Respect is showing up for your brothers. Respect is putting the team first. You think standing on the sidelines earns that?" Gasps spread through the players. Zach Martin shook his head. CeeDee Lamb muttered to a coach, "This is about to get ugly." And then Parsons let his words fly. "Don't talk to me about quitting. How about the times you folded in the playoffs? How about when this defense carried you and you couldn't deliver?" The air cracked. That wasn't just a jab. That was a direct shot at Dak's legacy, at the question that has followed him his entire career. Dak's face turned red. He gripped his helmet tight. "Say that again." Parsons leaned in, nearly nose to nose. "This team hides behind your smile, but when it matters, we know who really shows up, and it isn't you." Coaches rushed in, pulling Parsons back, holding Dak in place. "Enough, both of you," a staffer barked. "You're supposed to be the leaders of this team. Right now, you're tearing it apart." But the damage was done. Practice ended in silence. Parsons stormed toward the locker room, helmet swinging violently in his hand. Dak stayed behind, throwing angry spirals into receivers' chests before walking off slowly, surrounded by whispers. By morning, the story was out. Reporters chased it, insiders tweeted it, and the narrative shifted. This wasn't just a holdout anymore. It was a fracture at the very core of the Cowboys. Some veterans sided with Dak. "He's right," one was overheard saying. "We can't win if our stars are worried about contracts instead of football." Others sided with Parsons. "Easy for Dak to say he's been paid. Micah deserves his bag." The locker room was divided. Jerry Jones stepped to the podium with a smirk. "Those boys are competitors. Sometimes competitors get heated. I'm not concerned." But nobody believed him. Not the fans, not the media, not even the players inside that building. Rumors swirled that the Packers were circling, offering Rashawn Gary and a haul of draft picks. A chance for Dallas to reset, rebuild, and avoid paying record-setting money. But trading away Parsons would be admitting defeat. The same kind of mistake they've made before, the kind that haunts a franchise for decades. The media fed on it. National voices framed it as the unraveling of the Cowboys culture. This wasn't just about money. It was about leadership, about whether Dak could truly command the respect of the locker room, about whether Jerry Jones was capable of adapting to the realities of modern player negotiations. The argument wasn't about cap space. It was about whether the Cowboys were once again sabotaging themselves at the very moment when their roster was closest to contention. For Dak, the fight was a nightmare. He had built his reputation on being the steady leader, the calming presence. But in that moment, Parsons exposed the lingering doubt that has always followed him, the inability to deliver in January. Every time the Cowboys have fallen short, the quarterback shoulders the blame, and hearing it shouted across the field from the team's defensive cornerstone cut deeper than any media critique. For Parsons, the fight wasn't just emotion, it was strategy, a public reminder to the organization that he is not to be taken for granted, that his body, his production, and his value deserve recognition before resentment festers into something irreversible. The stakes are enormous. If Parsons is paid, Dallas secures its defensive anchor but risks long-term cap strain. If he's traded, the defense collapses and the locker room loses its heartbeat. If negotiations drag on, the divide grows wider and the season unravels before it begins. The new collective bargaining agreement makes true holdouts nearly impossible. The daily fines are too steep, too unforgiving to erase. Parsons knows this. Dallas knows this, which means both sides are trapped in a game of chicken, staring each other down, neither willing to blink first. Inside the locker room, veterans whisper about déjà vu. Zach Martin remembers his own battles with the front office. Younger players watch closely, learning the harsh reality of life in Dallas. The star on the helmet doesn't protect you when money is on the line. Teammates avoid taking sides openly, but everyone knows the fracture is real. The Cowboys are staring at a crossroads. Pay Parsons and live with the financial strain. Trade him and live with the fallout of losing a generational talent. Or continue to drag this out, hoping the storm passes while the season slips away under the weight of distrust. For now, the Cowboys camp is not about X's and O's. It's about survival. It's about whether Parsons and Dak can coexist after crossing a line that may never fully be repaired. It's about whether Jerry Jones can finally modernize his approach before another championship window slams shut. Because one thing is certain, the next time Parsons and Dak step onto the same field, the entire NFL will be watching. And the Dallas Cowboys will either rise from the chaos or collapse under the weight of it.